Have you ever wanted to take a leap? Maybe start a business, set up a boundary, maybe go after your dream, but you second guessed yourself into doing nothing? You're not alone. Self-doubt is one of the biggest reasons that people stay stuck. But what if I told you self-doubt isn't the problem? It's actually a symptom. I'm going to show you how to stop letting self-doubt run the show and how to start trusting yourself again. So first, why does this matter? Self-doubt doesn't mean that you're weak or incapable. It is a learned pattern. Whether it came from criticism, perfectionism, or a past failure, your brain has learned to question before you even get started. But here's the truth. You don't need permission to trust yourself. You just need to learn what made you doubt yourself in the first place. This video, I'm going to show you how. Before we dive in, comment below. What's one thing self-doubt has held you back from? Awareness is always our first step. So let's move through it. Step one, we want to recognize our self-doubts and where they come from. Self-doubt isn't who we are. It's a pattern, and it's always created for our safety. And it usually stems from either early criticism, so you're too much or you're not enough, fear of failure, what if I mess this up? And that might come because we've had a bad experience in the past, or it can come from comparison. In other words, everyone else has it figured out, or they're already doing it. So who am I to step up and do this anyways? It's always a big one in today's society with social media and everything else that's really going on. And I want to take a look at this. So when we take a look at early criticism, we need to understand that first and foremost, everybody is absolutely doing the best they can with what they have. Does that mean that they reach your expectations, your hopes, your dreams? No, it doesn't. But if we are doing the best we can with what we have, with our dramas and traumas, and we're at where we're at on our own healing journey, then the same holds for those around us. And maybe they're doing the best they can with what they have, and they can't do better because they're choosing to not do their healing journey. Nonetheless, they're still doing the best they can with what they have, whether we like it or not. Why am I bringing this up? Because if I don't point this out to you and then I say to you, early criticism, then that becomes more of an issue where we activate our inner victim and we don't let ourselves be victorious. I'm like this because this happened to me. Or I have my inner child and I can't heal until they acknowledge what they did. Untrue. You can absolutely begin healing and releasing this now. And so I don't want you to be a victim of the people in your life. I don't want you to be a victim of your childhood. I don't want you to be a victim because of high school bullies. I want you to be victorious. It's your life. Those things gave you an opportunity to become resilient, to get stronger. It's not that we ask for them. It's not that it's right or wrong. It simply is. Those things happened. They had an effect on us. And now we get to recognize where we're at, let them go, so that we can create the life and become who we are meant to become, who we, the self, has dreamed to become. And that's why I want to bring this up right here at the very first step. I don't want you to victimize yourself. That's definitely not a place I ever want for you. Fear of failure. Fear of failure often comes from things we've heard in the past. It might be a mocking comment that our dad said about our uncle, or somebody made a comment about a coworker or another student in school. And so our feelings of failure might not always come from our own failures, but they might actually come from how we've perceived how other people get treated when they fail, quote unquote. And I want you to remember that it's not necessarily failure. It's often feedback. It didn't work quite like this, so I can do it like this. It's like Edison. He didn't fail to create the light bulb 1,000 times. He learned 1,000 ways not to do it. And the same thing can go for us. And then that comparison note. This has been a huge one for me. I mean, all of these, I can speak to every single one of these in my own personal life, where they've held me back, where I haven't shown up, where I have been literally sick and paralyzed with creating something I really want to, for one of these reasons: comparison. For years, and stepped forward as a speaker. I didn't want to be visible on social media or anywhere else because I wouldn't be as good as whoever else. You know, somebody else is already saying it. There's already the Joe Dispenzas, the Mel Robbins in the world. So who am I to come here and speak? Well, the truth is I am Dawn Elgin. I'm a visionary mystic. And I absolutely need to take my spot in this world. I have my own unique way of sharing, and it's absolutely vital. There will be people that are waiting for me to show up in my life to help and guide them so that they can do the things that they're meant to do. And the same goes for you. People are waiting for you to show up in your life, to create your dreams. They're waiting for it. And so comparison is often a place where self-doubt shows itself up. Some of the other things that this can look like, and I wrote them down for myself, because often self-doubt will show itself as a block. We don't really know what is beneath it, but where we can see it sometimes it might look like imposter syndrome. So there's the comparison piece. It might look like worry or anxiousness, that fear of failure. It might look like procrastination. So do you need to go organize your closet right now? Maybe throw in a load of laundry? What are you doing right now that maybe you could be doing something else? Maybe it's scrolling. So where do we procrastinate? Maybe it's that not enough. Or maybe it's also avoidance. Upper limit, collecting. This is a big one for me. So in that comparison one, what that looked like in active life was it looked like me going and getting a whole bunch of degrees. I have 3 separate full coaching certifications. I have 4 breathwork certifications. I have 2 meditation certifications. Why? Because I never felt like I was good enough. I didn't feel like I was as good as fill in the blank. And so this was a way that it really showed up for me in my life. I'm going to come back to that as we move through the steps and how I moved beyond that and keep pushing beyond it to not let this rule any further. So I want you to think of a time where self-doubt has stopped you. And where did the belief come from? So for myself, one of those places was writing. I was terrified to write. Even to this day, I write my emails in point bullet form. And so, I have to actively think like, no, we're going to let ourselves flow. I started practicing in my blogs. I didn't even share anybody with my blogs. I just wrote and they were there and nobody knew about them. Why? Because it was just a way for me to start practicing. It was a way for me to move beyond it. Where did it come from? Well, when I stemmed it all the way back, it actually came from an elementary school teacher when I was first learning how to write. And she wrote a gigantic red line through my paperwork. And the little girl in me was so absolutely devastated by this that she never, ever got over it. And it stopped me all the way through my 30s, through my 40s. And just over the last 5 years, have I actively made a point of changing this behavior for myself. So what is there for you that you could move past this as well? So step 2, we want to start looking at how we can move from self-doubt into self-trust. And so how do we do that? The shift from self-doubt to self-trust really happens in these little small moments. So you can think of them as micro shifts. We're not trying to make great, big, huge leaps. We don't go from I can't write to now I write blogs to I write from a magazine. Maybe it is just starting to write your thoughts or contemplating on something and putting it in Facebook. Maybe it is writing in your journal. Maybe it is writing a short story or an article where you use a different name as you start to practice. So what do you need to do this? So little, tiny, small moments. And maybe we build that by doing this simple exercise. So we notice where the self-doubt comes up. So for example, I can't do this, or I'm not good enough, or nobody will listen, nobody will read it, nobody will like it. So whatever that self-doubt shows itself, that little gremlin, note it. And then ask yourself, is this fear actually true? And even though the subconscious mind will have actively got a whole bunch of information, go, yeah, it's absolutely true. I want you to really check in. Is it absolutely true in this moment? So based on everything I have right now today, is this true? And that is an important question for you to check in with, because who you are today is not who you were yesterday. Your body, physical, mental, and emotional, is changing all the time. It's a process. So who you are today is not who you were yesterday. And that little girl that had the big red line through it, that didn't believe she could write, recently, I went back through a whole bunch of papers. I was going through my mom's home as we were packing things up. She just passed away. And as I was going through, there was these envelopes of when I had gone back to school. I dropped out when I was in grade 10, and I went back through Selkirk College to upgrade and go through everything. And so I went and redid all of my English. And in there, I wrote a bunch of essays. And all of those essays got A's. Every single one of them. I ended up sending them, I guess, to my mom. I don't even remember doing it. I was in my early 20s. And I sent them all to my mom with my teacher's responses. So there was a ton of proof that it was actually not true. But because it was so deeply embedded in my belief system, because it started at that early age, that even though there was all this proof that that wasn't true at all, my mind kept picking back up to where the proof said differently. And so when we ask ourselves, is this fear actually true, or is it just an old story? And then we have an opportunity to begin again. So we want to take one small action that proves otherwise. And that action could be, like I said, writing a story, writing an article. It could be writing a post. And even go even smaller than that, maybe it is taking a writing class online. Something that helps build the confidence up one little step at a time. Maybe if it's speaking, it's joining Toastmasters. Maybe if it's dancing, it's taking a class. So what can we do for ourselves? And even if we don't go and take a class, maybe it's watching videos online and practicing. So what can we do to help rebuild self-trust? How can we create that opposing energy for ourselves? So we're going to choose one small action today that proves that you can trust yourself. What's one little thing? I want you to remember that self-trust isn't built in a day. It's built in daily choices. Just like bravery isn't an absence of fear, it's doing it in spite of it. Self-trust is the same. It's not having self-doubt. It's doing it anyways. We can work to slowly unwind and unbed those. They can also happen fast. But In the meantime, we can actively work to unwind those thought patterns, to unwind those beliefs. And as we're doing that, we embed a new belief. So we're not just trying to rewrite over top of something. I think that's where a lot of accidents get made. A lot of people go and have this one, negative thought, and then they try to have an opposite thought. The problem is it's like an old tape. Remember the old VHSs? And you could tape a TV show or a movie, and then you could tape a new one over top of it. But what would happen sometimes is we would get like an echo. And so all of a sudden you'd get a ghost of the previous picture behind the new show because it hadn't actually been erased. So the point of going through in two and saying, is this even true? Is this an old thought? Is we want to go back through and prove it wrong. It's like we're doing an unwinding process. I have some meditations that I have done where we go in and we unwind an old thought. So you can take a look at those and see if that is a benefit to you. So we can do a meditation, we can do all sorts of things to help us unwind an old thought form. And then we can look at recreating from this moment, this new thought form. So we can prove a different answer for ourselves. Who do you choose to be? And so self-trust is really a ritual that we want to start. And we can think of it that way. It's a ritual. And we do it every moment of the day, or at least one day at a time, little tiny micro moments. So maybe it's each morning we take a nice deep breath and we ask ourselves, what is one small way that I can trust myself today? Just one, not 10, not the whole day. What's one small way that I can trust myself today? And then commit to it. It could be setting a boundary, making a decision without second guessing. It could simply be pausing before reacting. So instead, we get to respond, which is more responsible. So every time you follow through, you're proving to yourself that you can trust you. And that is vital. So it's one small way that you can start building self-trust today. Go ahead and drop it in the comments. Self-trust isn't about never doubting. It's about choosing to act anyways. I hope this video helped. Make sure that you like, subscribe, and hit the bell so that you don't miss next week's video on breaking through fear and owning your power. If you'd like to go deeper, I invite you to join our Awakening Circle on Facebook, our community, for deeper conversations just like this. Until next time, brightest of blessings.